Welcome to Inside the Vault with SWP. Join Mark Yaxley as we explore the latest news, reports, and some bullion basics for investors old and new. Let's get to it.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Vault with SWP, a weekly show where we dive into the world of precious metals and precious metals investing. If you've joined us before, thank you again for your support. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. You can go and find our previous episodes on ANCAP Radio's Twitter account or posted on the SWP YouTube channel, along with a ton of other precious metals related content. I'm your host, Jeremy Varlow. And as always, I'll be joined by my colleague, industry veteran Mark Yaxley, in just a moment. Be sure to check out our Inside the Vault series on the SWP YouTube channel, which is one of, if not the most viewed content on precious metals available anywhere, hosted, of course, by CEO of SWP, Mark Yaxley. Something there for everyone, whether you're new to precious metals or a seasoned investor alike. We're incredibly excited to expand Inside the Vault in podcast form, along with ANCAP Radio. So thank you to ANCAP again for having us on today. On today's show, we will cover, as always, our weekly market update, discussing the metals markets over the past 7 days, along with the top stories that we are following around the globe that affect precious metals prices. We'll also dive into our weekly Bullion Basics segment, which is a quick hitter designed to educate novice and savvy investors alike. And joining us today is Carrie Cook, CEO of Preferred Trust, a fully licensed IRA custodian, to talk about investing in precious metals and other alternative assets through your IRA. Let's jump into things with our market update with Mr. Mark Yaxley. Mark, how are you doing today?
Hey, Jeremy, doing well. Really excited to have Carrie Cook joining us. She's one of my favorite people from the industry, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll reiterate it later in the show, but we are big fans of Preferred Trust. Their team is just absolutely top-notch. Their devotion to customer service is none other. So very excited to have Carrie on. Mark, let's jump into the market update. What have you been following the last 7 days since we last spoke?
Thanks, Jeremy. We'll start with the war in Gaza. Obviously remains top of mind for gold and silver investors. The current intensity and scope of the war in Gaza seems to be priced into the gold market at this point. The gold price did briefly rise above the $2,000 an ounce mark last week, but has since retraced to its current levels and may stay there or retrace even further. I think that the $1,950 an ounce is in play at this point in time until the conflict further escalates or expands. Eyes will also be on the Fed announcement this week. A pause in interest rate hikes would be positive for the gold and silver price versus a quarter point raise, which is not expected, although that would put more pressure on the gold price if it were to occur. The U.S. equities are increasingly volatile, a new trend that we've noticed in the last 10 trading sessions, despite a strong U.S. economy, which has been positive for the gold price. So a little bit of struggles in the equity markets. It has been reflecting well in the gold price. And finally, the World Gold Council has published its Q3 numbers. For any listener, if you have not signed up for the World Gold Council's free newsletter, I do recommend that you do that. They send out some great data. Some of the highlights of the report were year-to-date central bank gold purchases are 14% ahead of 2022. Central banks bought a net 800 tons of gold this year, which is the highest on record for a 9-month period. Jewelry consumption softened slightly, down 2% year over year. And probably more importantly, Q3 investment demand was 157 tons of gold, which is 56% higher than last year over year. However, that is weaker than its 5-year rolling average of 315 tons. So in summary, Jeremy, mixed news for gold this week and this past quarter. We'll need the ETFs to re-engage with gold on more safe haven buying to test that $2,000 an ounce mark again.
Thanks for that, Mark. And yeah, like you said, we've kind of been a little bit of a cool off after the last couple of weeks with the prices of metals as a whole rising. We're going to get into a little bit about the psychology of buying later in your Bullion Basics segment, so definitely stay tuned for that. Let's jump right into our interview segment. Our guest, as I mentioned, Carrie Cook, is the CEO of Preferred Trust Company, a licensed retail trust company holding custody of alternative assets on behalf of IRA account owners. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you guys for having me.
Looking forward to chatting. We're obviously going to talk about IRAs. We want to dig into that conversation, but we always like to introduce our guests to the audience. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. As Mark mentioned, he's a big fan of yours. So tell us who Carrie Cook is.
Who is Carrie Cook? She's crazy. She's wild. She loves investments. She loves teaching individuals how they can not pay taxes. She's a little bit out there. I got to be honest with you. She's the CEO of a custodian that helps individuals look at alternative assets in a different light. We're so used to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and we're becoming more used to market volatility that, I'm all about how do we create some stabilization in our lives and making sure that we're prepared for retirement. So I'm kind of crazy. Love the outdoors. Love running companies. Love taking companies from nothing and making them into something. That's Carrie.
Hey, Jeremy. I think you might have muted yourself. There you go.
I did mute myself. Apologies. Nice to meet you, Carrie. As I said, we're going to talk about kind of the stability and how people can protect themselves in just a moment, in the current macroeconomic landscape. But I want to talk about preferred trust. As I mentioned, we're big fans of you all over there for your dedication to customer service and values that we share with you. Tell us about preferred trust and what sets you apart from other IRA custodians.
So Preferred Trust is a licensed, regulated, examined custodian in Nevada. So we fall under the Nevada Financial Institutions Division oversight, as well as we are governed under the IRS rules and regulations. So we are an avenue for individuals to be able to take their current qualified funds. And when I say qualified funds, what I mean by that is their current IRAs that they may be holding at a large financial institution that only offers the opportunity for your public assets, your stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And what we do is we are unique in the sense that individuals can invest in all things alternative outside of the stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And when I say things outside, I'm talking about anything that one, they know about, they have interest in, they're trying to hedge against inflation. So it can be real estate, it could be digital currency, it could be oil and gas, it could be precious metals, it could be small business startups, it could be farming. I mean, really anything's the sky's the limit. There are only 3 things that the IRS says you cannot invest in, and everything else is open for us to navigate with our clients and making sure that we're vesting it properly. And they're not disqualifying their qualified funds. The reason why I would say we're unique, because we're not the only self-directed custodian out there, but our uniqueness kind of comes from the partnerships that we create. I am all about client advocacy. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure that when clients navigate alternative assets, they have somebody else on their team with them. Looking into the company, making sure they've filed, with the SEC if it's a private placement memorandum, making sure that, the precious metals dealer is not charging more than they should, really kind of spotlighting or highlighting things that maybe the client didn't think of. So client advocacy is really important to me because I'm quite risk adverse personally, and I kind of, it spills out into my professional life. So there's that. The second reason why I think we are relatively unique, not only putting people over profit, but is our communication. And I know that sounds crazy, and everybody says, oh, we've got best in class service. I say that and mean it and do it. That's the difference with us. When you are moving your funds from one financial institution to another, the one thing that is, that's scary just in itself, right? But somebody telling you along the way what's happening, instead of just ghosting you for 2 weeks and you wondering what's going on and trying to call and going through a phone service and not getting a call back, I don't believe in that. My staff has 30 minutes. If we have a voicemail that gets left, 30 minutes to respond to it, period. No email, no phone call goes unanswered that day. So we're a little different in that regard. I'm kind of an iron fist when it comes to that. And so those couple of things is what I think makes us different.
Yeah, and I think that that's why we have such a great partnership with you between SWP and Preferred Trust, because as I said, we share a lot of those similar values. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the self-directed IRA space. There's a good bit to unpack there. Mm-hmm. Why would someone want to self-direct their IRA? Like, what are the benefits? Why do you think this option hasn't been more widely adopted?
Education. I mean, it's really hard. People don't like to talk about finances. Let's just be honest, right? Most of the time when you talk with a client, they hold back, and rightfully so, right? The first conversation isn't, well, let me tell you all about my finances. Let me tell you all about where my retirement accounts are. It's usually, I haven't looked at that statement in many years, Carrie. I'm not really sure if I have an IRA as part of, this account that I have set up with Fidelity or whatever. Or, when I talk with my tax accountant, I think every year they've been having me put money away so that I can reduce the taxes I'm paying to the IRS, but I've never really looked at that account. Finances is just not something people like to talk about. But when we work with the right investment sponsors, investment companies out there, and they hear about how they can raise capital through IRAs when they're most accustomed to cash, business accounts, trusts, right? That's what I would call, I don't want to say easy money, but it's an easy ask, right? Do you have $50,000? Are you an accredited investor? Yes, I am. I have $50,000. Okay, well, you can invest with us. They don't move on to the next question, which is, do you have retirement accounts? Because most investment companies are not financial planners. They're not asking those types of questions, but why not? Because most IRAs are just sitting on a shelf, earning nothing, while we're paying these big box companies to make money off of our IRA dollars. So why not put those IRA dollars to work? As soon as that concept is mentioned, it kind of blows the roof off of it, because now we're discovering, do they have a traditional IRA that they have not paid taxes on, that they have a deferred tax opportunity to invest with? Or are they sitting on a gold mine? I like to call this like the best gift the government ever gave us, which is a Roth IRA. The reason I say that is because when you really talk to somebody about a Roth IRA or the potential of having a Roth IRA or starting an IRA or converting funds over into an IRA, I'm going to give you an example of just a quick example of what happened. In 2017, Preferred Trust decided we're going to be one of the first custodians to enter a digital currency investment model. And everybody else is like, you're crazy. Why would you ever do that? And, you read enough about things, you learn about them. You see that there's this trend growing, and there's the value of digital currency growing. And a lot of clients initially invested in digital currency using a Roth IRA. And they got in at the time where it was like $3,500 a unit for Bitcoin. So just think about this for a second. A couple of years later, they're selling for $60,000 a unit, literally just turning people into millionaires through a Roth IRA that they will never pay taxes on. Any of that income that they derive from that. So Roth IRAs are an untapped tool that more and more people need to have. My younger generation, I say younger generation because I do love to employ the younger generation, to educate them about a Roth IRA or utilizing the Roth IRA in a 401k plan is so important, because by the time they retire, can you imagine what the tax brackets are going to look like? Because taxes aren't going down, they're going up. And so that is probably the most powerful aspect about Preferred Trust Company and the utilization of IRAs, and then getting those funds into the alternatives that really propel your ability to increase your retirement accounts.
I'm so glad that you mentioned cryptocurrency and how you are a custodian of cryptocurrency investments. I want to talk about that in just a second. But before I do, let's talk about the actual process. So, hypothetical scenario, I am a new client. I have an existing IRA or a 401k with another provider. What's the process like to move my investments to preferred trust? Do I need to liquidate previous investments? Can I transfer them in kind? And also, say I do transfer funds over to you and I leave some uninvested, I'm doing my research on all these investment opportunities you provide. Are my non-invested funds insured? Are they earning interest? What happens with those uninvested funds as well?
Well, that's a lot. So let's start with moving the IRA. In order to move an IRA, let's use, I'll keep it with Fidelity. Let's use Fidelity as an example. And it could be Schwab, TD Ameritrade, it could be Wells Fargo, anywhere that your IRA is currently at that doesn't allow alternative assets. So what we would need to do is make sure, one, that it is in a liquid state. You are correct. We are only moving cash over from I'll call it what was your public investments. So we would need to liquidate to make sure you have cash available. If you're moving from a self-directed custodian, let's just say you're not happy with the services. Maybe they're taking too long to process, your payments as they're coming in. Maybe you're dissatisfied with the customer service. You can also move your cash and you can move your in-kind assets that you currently have. So if you have investments in, let's say, precious metals, and you want to move those precious metals, you absolutely can move the precious metals and the cash. So you really have two components that are happening there. One, to move those funds, we do need to do a transfer or conversion form. So we need to transfer the funds from the current custodian where they're held to us. That can take anywhere from 2 days, 2 weeks to 2 months. Kind of depends on where the assets currently are. Banks don't want to let go, and custodians don't want to let go of cash. So sometimes they'll slow pay that. We're not trying to slow play on our end, but unfortunately, that happens a lot. We see that more and more, especially since some of these bigger organizations are kind of locked up with some of their cash right now. So it is taking a little bit longer. But once it's here, you're good to go. Now, once the funds come here, Preferred Trust operates as a bank. We fall under banking regulations. We have to follow all BSA, AML rules, laws, regulations. The only thing that we don't do is we don't take cash in as deposits. Besides that, everything else, we are regulated just like a bank. So the cash that is held here, we hold our cash in FDIC insured investments. So these are government-backed investments that we're holding the cash in. Some of the cash. We obviously don't hold all of our cash in that, but some of our cash is held in that so that we can make sure that we are securing the cash that we do hold on behalf of our clients. We do pay some interest on the cash that is being held in their account based on a 6-month CD rate. That is the interest that we pay. Not all custodians do that. Actually, most custodians don't do that. We chose to do that because we got so many questions about it. But as a bank, there's only 2 ways to make money: the service that you provide and the cash of the clients that you have. Those are the 2 ways that we make money. We don't make money on your investments. We can't make money on your investments, actually. So that kind of unpacks, I think, everything that you just asked. Did I miss anything?
No, that really nails it. I appreciate that. I want to ask you about the precious metals space in general. How you guys work with a company like us. Obviously, we know, but let's talk about you are setting up an IRA account with Preferred Trust. How does it work? For somebody that wants to come in and purchase their first gold and silver in their IRA.
Well, with SWP, it's quite seamless. And the reason why we partner with companies is, 1, to get to know you, 2, to get to know your service level, and 3, to get to know your processes and how we can efficiently move from our service to your service. So no client wakes up in the morning. I say this all the time. People are like, they got to be tired of hearing this. Nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, let me stretch, get my coffee, and go open up a self-directed IRA. Right? That doesn't happen. What happens is clients wake up, they have a moment of clarity, and they decide, I've got to diversify my portfolio. Or they listen to the news and they're like, oh, I need to protect some of my assets. And I'm sure with SWP's marketing efforts, as well as people calling them, they are identifying that they want to effectively do something different with their retirement account. SWP from that point is reaching out to us if the client is interested in investing through a self-directed IRA. We make sure that the application gets opened. We make sure that we kind of move through the process with them if SWP hasn't already, because they have the tools and the resources and the education from us to help clients as well. And that's super important to us, that our company partners understand what we're doing and how to do it. So again, service levels. Then, once we've moved the funds over, we are communicating with SWP and the client to let them know that the funds have been moved and are now available for investment. SWP then reaches out with the client to identify what types of metals they want to purchase. That invoice is then sent over to us. We purchase the metals. We send the funds to SWP. Metals are held at the depository, either at SWP or either in Cayman, or they also have a U.S. option available, which was very exciting when they added that, because not everybody is comfortable having their metals outside of the U.S. And so we make sure that the funds are delivered to that depository or held with SWP. We verify that through the reporting that they provide to us. The metals are in the client's account. Client can now view that through their account with us, as well as with SWP verification, and we're done. It truly is that seamless.
It truly is. And for anyone out there that might be interested in opening an IRA or just wants, to talk about precious metals in general, you do not need to have an account or, any precious metals experience or IRA experience. Please feel free to reach out to either Carrie's team or us at SWP, and we can certainly help answer your questions. That's going to bring us to the end of this conversation with Carrie. I really appreciate your time and for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, as we're coming to the end of the show, we always finish with our Bullion Basics segment with Mark. Mark, what do you have for us today?
Hey, Jeremy. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Carrie. Some excellent information, as always. I really do encourage people to take a look deeper into self-directed IRAs if they are not already. In terms of Bullion Basics today, it's a question that we get asked quite often is, when is a good time to buy precious metals? And the tendency for people, Jeremy, is to wait until a major event, for example, a war breaks out, and then they start to buy metal, which typically means they're buying metal at the top of the market, when in fact the most opportune time is to be buying prior, when prices are softer, so pre-crisis. So my 2 tips today for Bullion Basics is basically, number 1, remove the stress of trying to pick tops and bottoms. Buy precious metals on a regular basis, whether that be monthly or quarterly, whatever you're comfortable with in your own personal budgeting schedule. And that'll give you the benefit of cost averaging your purchases. And like I said, it totally removes the stress of the spot price. Am I buying at the right spot price or the wrong spot price? You're just buying on a predetermined schedule that you're already comfortable with, that matches your budget and when you have available investment income. The second point is, or a second strategy, I should say, is if you want to, you can allocate a certain percentage of your overall net worth to precious metals. So let's call that 10%. So when you do an assessment, again, that could be quarterly or monthly, and you evaluate your net worth or your overall investment portfolio, that's when you would add gold or silver according to your total net worth. So again, if your allocation is 10%, and your net worth has gone up over the last month or the last quarter, you can add some precious metals to maintain that 10% of your overall net worth. And on the flip side of that, if your net worth has decreased, you've taken a little bit of a hit in the market, or a deal didn't go your way, or you've lost your employment, and you now need to sell some precious metals to maintain that 10% allocation, that's okay as well. But again, this strategy removes the price watching and just gives you a more regular, predetermined way to buy and sell, to time your buying and selling of precious metals. So that is the Bullion Basics segment for today, Jeremy.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think it's an old Warren Buffett quote, if I'm not wrong. Time in the market is better than timing the market. Thank you for for sharing that with us. That is all for Mark and myself. Thanks to everyone for listening to ANCAP Radio, for partnering with us, and lastly to Carrie Cook for joining us. We'll be coming to you live again next week, Wednesday at noon Eastern. So make sure to set a reminder when you see notification from ANCAP Radio or SWP's Twitter accounts. For more information on precious metals investing, you can always visit our website at www.swpcayman.com. Or, as I mentioned, the Strategic Wealth Preservation YouTube channel. Also head over to Preferred Trust. You can certainly reach out to their team there and ask any questions about self-directed IRAs. Until next week, stay safe and happy investing.
Thank you for listening to Inside the Vault, the podcast that opens the door to precious metals. We hope you learned something new and enjoyed the show. See you next time on Inside the Vault with SWP.